Thank you for tuning in to the getwellbe podcast. This is your host, Adrienne Nolan-Smith. I'm a board-certified holistic patient advocate, and my goal with this podcast and all my other work with getwellbe, which you can check out at getwellbe.com, is to empower you in your health, helping you avoid chronic symptoms and diseases, and helping you heal them as naturally and holistically as possible when they do come up. This week, I've got a big personal announcement for you, as I said I would share last week, and a brand new guide to research-backed ways to improve fertility. Before we jump in, if you like the getwellbe podcast and you haven't yet left a review or subscribed to it, please do so now. You don't even have to stop listening to this episode. Just scroll all the way to the bottom of the getwellbe podcast page on your app and click write a review. Give us hopefully 5 stars and a few words, and then press submit in the top right-hand corner, and boom, you're done. Now, I wanted to tell you this for a while, and perhaps the subject of this podcast episode has given you some clues, but I'm 5 months pregnant with my first child, a boy. It's been hard not to share this with you already, but it's so exciting to be able to tell you now. There are so many things that have happened in my prenatal care with the healthcare system, and just so much that I've learned and gone through over the past few months and over the next few months that I'd love to share with you. So I'm so glad this announcement is out in the world, and the podcast is actually the very first place that I am mentioning it. So if that's not a sign that I love you guys, I don't know what is. I'll be sharing some tidbits about my experience here and there over the next several months, but of course, you'll still get lots of great information, research, and inspiration on other topics that getwellbe would traditionally cover, not just things like fertility and pregnancy and birth and parenting, etc. But of course, I'll add some of that in as I am going through it, because it's hard enough to share with you and has so much to do with advocacy and the healthcare system and taking care of yourself and all kinds of other things. Now, while I feel very lucky to have gotten pregnant within the first few months of trying, the experience has opened up my eyes to how big the problem of infertility really is today. In fact, the National Fertility Association reports that more than 1 in 8 couples struggle with getting pregnant, and many of those people are at a loss as to how to improve fertility. So with Infertility Awareness Week just behind us and Mother's Day around the corner, I wanted to explore the huge topic of trying to get pregnant and look at how to increase fertility naturally. Before we get into natural fertility boosters, though, let's take a quick look at infertility itself. Couples can struggle with either primary fertility, which is struggling to get pregnant with your first child, or secondary fertility, which is struggling to get pregnant after having 1 or more children already. And the infertility can come from either the male or the female in the couple. But of course, infertility isn't a condition in and of itself. It's the result of something or multiple things going awry in the normal process of conception. For women, that could mean a number of things. Female infertility can occur when a woman doesn't ovulate or ovulates irregularly. It can occur if something is blocking the fallopian tube so that her eggs can't get from the ovaries to the uterus. It can occur if the eggs can't attach to the wall of the womb, either because her uterine lining is too thin or some other cause. Or it could happen because the fertilized egg dies after attaching to the uterine lining, often because the egg wasn't viable in the first place. If the infertility is happening because of the male partner, the issue is generally related to sperm. It could mean low sperm count or low sperm motility, meaning they're not good at, quote-unquote, swimming their way to the egg, abnormal or unhealthy sperm, or some sort of physical blockage that prevents the sperm from being released in the first place. But these issues aren't really conditions either. While they are all causes of infertility, they're all caused by something else in turn. That's where trying to improve fertility gets tricky, because the list of potential root causes is long. Some underlying issues that can trigger infertility include certain autoimmune disorders, for example, celiac disease and lupus, cancers or tumors, diabetes, blood clotting disorders, thyroid conditions, hormonal imbalances, anemia, certain genetic disorders like cystic fibrosis, physical issues in the uterus like fibroids, endometriosis, or uterine polyps, which of course have their own long list of root causes. Then physical issues with the ovaries like PCOS, ovarian cysts, or if the ovaries have stopped working prematurely. We know PCOS is linked to so many other root causes, including diet and hormonal imbalances, etc. Then there's being overweight or underweight, excessive exercise, excessive drinking, drug use, or smoking. And then there's environmental toxins. So that could be things like hormone or endocrine disrupting chemicals in personal care products, and also things like toxic mold in your home, and many, many others. The vast amount of possible root causes of infertility can be overwhelming for those hoping to improve fertility. The good news is that a lot of these issues can be quickly diagnosed with lab tests or physical exams and then treated accordingly. Maybe that actually solves a problem, maybe not, but at least you know what you're dealing with as a first layer. And for infertility that's not caused by a specific condition, there are plenty of ways to increase fertility naturally. The Western medical approach to infertility generally focuses on treating the symptom, infertility, rather than the underlying cause or causes, which means that it can miss major things going on in the patient's body. Plus, this approach usually involves synthetic hormones and invasive procedures, two things that we try to avoid at all costs. Thankfully, there are many research-backed natural ways to increase fertility, and most of these strategies are great for your health in general, regardless of whether or not you're trying to conceive. So it's a win-win. If you're looking to improve fertility without pharmaceuticals or other interventions, try these natural fertility boosters for women. First, exercise moderately. Research shows that moderate physical activity is associated with increased fertility in all women. However, it's important not to push it too far. Exercising too vigorously or excessively, so more than 5 hours per week, can decrease fertility by suppressing the hormone progesterone and stopping or disrupting ovulation. So that means opting for things like a vinyasa yoga class or a brisk walk rather than, let's say, a 10-mile run. Next, make sure your weight is in a healthy range. Being overweight or underweight can disrupt menstruation and ovulation or cause them to stop altogether, and can also throw hormones out of balance. Because of both of these things and other factors, women whose weight falls outside of the healthy BMI range on either side have significantly more trouble getting pregnant. According to the research, the best BMI range to improve fertility is between 20 and 24. Next, keep your stress in check. Studies show that being stressed out can cause fertility problems in women, a cruel twist of fate given how stressful it is to struggle with getting pregnant in the first place. In a recent study, researchers found a 29% reduction in fertility in couples who had high stress levels. This is largely due to the hormone cortisol, which our bodies pump out when we're experiencing stress. Cortisol keeps us in a state of fight or flight, where our body is focused on survival and so shuts down less essential functions like reproduction. Next, take multivitamins and eat a varied whole foods diet. Certain micronutrients play a vital role in female fertility, and while the best thing you can do is eat a wide range of colorful, nutrient-dense whole foods, with the majority of those being plants, it's not easy these days to get all of these micronutrients that are needed to get pregnant through diet alone. If you're not familiar, micronutrients are chemical substances that our bodies need in very small trace amounts in order to function. One study estimates that 20% of infertility due to ovulation problems could be avoided by taking 3 or more multivitamins a week. Next, get some vitamin D, and specifically, try to get it from the sun. Vitamin D is essential for so many important bodily processes, and reproduction is one of them. Studies show that vitamin D3 maximizes a woman's ability to conceive naturally, and studies have shown that 93% of women experiencing infertility have a vitamin D3 deficiency. While vitamin D supplements can be extremely helpful, they don't fully take the place of sunlight, which synthesizes vitamin D3 naturally. Next, try acupuncture. Acupuncture is often at the top of the list of natural fertility boosters, and with good reason. Research has shown that it can help to improve fertility for both men and women by helping with things like reducing stress, increasing blood flow to the reproductive organs, and balancing your hormones. Next, quit smoking. We're guessing we're preaching to the choir here, but if you smoke and need yet another reason to quit, here's one. Smoking can seriously reduce your chance of getting pregnant. Research shows that it can increase the risk of miscarriage, negatively impact a woman's ovarian reserve, which is the quality and quantity of a woman's egg, and even trigger early menopause. Next, reduce your toxic burden as much as possible. Our environment is full of toxins, whether they're in foods we eat, cleaning products we use, personal care items, the materials used in our homes, or many, many other potential places. While the ways these different chemicals impact fertility vary, some may disrupt hormones, some may damage reproductive organs, some may play less clear-cut roles but still be causing harm. studies draw a clear connection between environmental toxins and fertility problems. To reduce your risk of toxin-related fertility issues, try to lower your toxic burden as much as possible by drinking filtered water, buying organic food whenever possible, and choosing non-toxic products like those we have in the getwellbe non-toxic product database. For example, we have compiled the most insane amount of vetted, curated, and rated non-toxic products in categories like personal care, home cleaning, laundry, food brands, kitchenware, and much, much more. If you haven't seen it already, definitely head to getwellbe.com and check it out. You may also want to look into stealth environmental toxins like mold in your home, for example, or a high level of lead-containing dust in your home or asbestos. I know someone who struggled with infertility for over 3 years, and after discovering toxic mold in her home, moved out and got pregnant just a few months after living without mold. So whatever the source of environmental toxicity, if you're struggling with fertility, think about possible things that might be causing it from the environmental side. While people often think of women first when the topic of infertility comes up, male infertility is a major issue too. In fact, sperm counts have dropped by more than 50% in Western men, so men in the Western Hemisphere, in the past 40 years. I'm going to say that again because that is so crazy. Sperm counts have dropped more than 50% in men in the Western Hemisphere in the past 40 years. In terms of natural ways to increase fertility for men, much of the above advice applies. So exercise, maintaining a healthy weight, avoiding toxins, not smoking. However, there are some male-specific natural fertility boosters, so let me tell you about those. First, take an amino acid supplement. Studies have linked amino acids to higher quality sperm, improving sperm count, motility, and health. The amino acid L-carnitine have been specifically linked to better male fertility, as has fish oil, which contains various amino acids. Next, make sure, if you're a guy, get enough sleep. While we should all be prioritizing adequate sleep, getting enough rest can be especially important for men who are trying to conceive with a partner. Research has shown that sleeping fewer than 6 hours per night can decrease sperm volume by up to 25%, as well as negatively impact motility. This is likely because testosterone has its own circadian rhythm, which is disrupted when you skimp on sleep. Next, don't overdo the biking. Researchers have found a link between frequent cycling and male infertility, with men who bike for more than 5 hours per week experiencing lower sperm count and poorer motility. Next, keep things cool. Excessive heat around the groin area can do damage to a man's sperm. That means men should be wary of things like putting laptops directly on their lap and frequently using saunas or hot tubs. As with basically everything health-related, fertility is also greatly impacted by your diet. That means that many of the best natural fertility boosters actually have to do with what you do and don't eat. Here's a rundown of the most effective fertility-boosting foods and other nutritional guidelines. First, eat organic. As I mentioned before, environmental toxins can cause infertility, often by disrupting hormones. Pesticides are one of the most pervasive environmental toxins, and they can do a whole lot of damage because we're actually ingesting them. So it's probably no surprise that research shows that eating pesticide-sprayed food is associated with a lower chance of getting pregnant and a higher risk of miscarriage. Avoid this risk by always choosing organic produce, or at the very least going organic with anything on the Dirty Dozen list. Next, balance your blood sugar. Insulin, the hormone that metabolizes sugar, is chemically similar to ovarian hormones that help eggs grow and mature. So if your hormone levels are elevated, your body thinks that it can produce fewer reproductive hormones, resulting in too few or immature eggs. To counter this, choose foods with a low glycemic index. Next, choose plant protein. Studies have linked eating a lot of animal protein to ovulation issues, and associated plant proteins like soy, lentils, chickpeas, or tempeh with better female fertility. Next, eat foods high in antioxidants. Some of the best fertility-boosting foods are those that are chock full of antioxidants. Antioxidants are chemical compounds that fight off damaging free radicals in your body and can be found in berries, nuts, dark chocolate, and leafy greens, among other sources. One study of young men found that eating 75 grams of antioxidant-rich walnuts per day improved sperm quality, while another found that women with a high intake of folate, an antioxidant found in leafy greens, chickpeas, and cruciferous vegetables, was associated with a higher chance of getting pregnant and carrying the pregnancy to term. Cruciferous vegetables are things like broccoli and kale and Brussels sprouts. Next, load up on whole grains. Because unstable blood sugar can disrupt ovulation, whole grains are a great choice for keeping insulin levels stable. Fiber can also regulate hormones by binding excessive estrogen to the intestine. Next, go full fat and organic if you're going to eat dairy. Dairy has a lot of downsides, so if you steer clear of dairy, then this is not for you. But if you do eat dairy, be aware of its fat content and its potential for increasing your pesticide and hormone exposure. Studies show that eating or drinking non-fat dairy products like skim milk or non-fat yogurt can promote infertility and ovulatory disorders. On the other hand, eating full-fat dairy products was associated with a 25% reduced risk of infertility, and organic dairy ensures you're avoiding the pesticides and added hormones given to dairy cows that can also mess with your hormones and therefore your fertility. Next, don't skip breakfast. If you're struggling with PCOS or another hormonal issue, eating a substantial meal when you wake up might help. One study found that women with PCOS who ate a large breakfast had more regular periods and increased fertility. Next, avoid soda and other sugary drinks. This should be an all-the-time thing, but especially for fertility. Sugar-sweetened beverages like soda and energy drinks are associated with an average 20% reduced chance of conception, with women who drink 1 soda per day 25% less likely to get pregnant in a given month. Sugary energy drinks were linked with an even bigger reduction in fertility. Next, speaking of drinks, watch your caffeine intake. You don't have to completely ditch the caffeine habit if you're trying to get pregnant, but it's important to be mindful of quantity. Research shows that women who consume 500 milligrams or more per day of caffeine have an increased risk for fertility problems. But given that this comes out to about 5 cups of coffee, rest assured that you can still have your morning cup without compromising fertility, since the average cup of coffee has about 150 milligrams per cup. Last but not least, go easy on the alcohol. While it's fine to have the occasional glass of wine or two while trying to get pregnant, heavy drinking can lead to fertility issues in both sexes. For men, excessive alcohol is associated with impotence and decreased sperm production, while in women, it can lead to ovulation disorders. Every person looking to improve fertility is unique, and what works for you will depend on your specific body and circumstances. The good news is that the fertility-boosting foods and dietary guidelines I just shared with you are good under any circumstances, so you'll reap the health benefits either way. All right, so to sum up, trying to get pregnant can be a challenging and overwhelming process. The expensive, invasive treatments offered by conventional medicine to improve fertility can make it feel even more so. Now that I'm pregnant, I know so many people who have spoken to me about the journey that they've gone through with infertility, and it's heartbreaking. Thankfully, there are ways to improve fertility. Here's what to remember about natural fertility boosters. First, as I said, infertility is an increasingly common issue, way too common than it should be. 1 in 8 couples in the U.S. struggle to conceive, and sperm counts have dropped by over 50% over the past 50 years in Western Hemisphere men. That means people in North America and Western Europe. It's really a staggering statistic and really shows that our environment is in trouble. Next, either the male or the female partner, or both, could be the source of the fertility issues. For women, the cause of infertility could have to do with ovulation problems, physical obstacles like fibroids or blocked fallopian tubes, poor egg quality, or a thin uterine lining, among other issues. For men, the cause of infertility is generally related to sperm count, motility, and health. There are so many possible root causes of fertility issues. Infertility could be caused by certain autoimmune conditions, exposure to environmental toxins, smoking or drug use, STIs or STDs, thyroid disorders, diabetes, being overweight or underweight, tumors or cancers, hormonal problems, excessive exercise, excessive stress, or genetic disorders, among other causes. While conventional fertility treatment usually involves synthetic hormones and invasive procedures that treat the surface cause of infertility, there are natural ways to increase fertility that have no side effects and treat the root cause, which is always better. Natural fertility boosters include maintaining a healthy weight, exercising in moderation, reducing stress, getting enough vitamin D3, probably from a combination of a supplement and the sun, taking a multivitamin, avoiding environmental toxins in products and your home environment, and considering trying acupuncture. For men specifically, taking amino acids, getting enough sleep, and avoiding too much biking and excessive heat in the groin area can improve fertility. What you eat and don't eat can also help improve fertility. It's important to choose organic, pesticide-free foods and eat whole grains and other low glycemic index foods to keep your blood sugar balanced. Fertility-boosting foods include organic, full-fat dairy, antioxidant-packed foods like berries and walnuts, and plant protein. Foods to avoid include too much caffeine, too much alcohol, and sugary sodas and energy drinks. All right, now I want to know, have you had success with improving fertility naturally? Do you know of any natural fertility boosters that I didn't mention in this episode? I'd love to know your story and what worked for you. So let me know in the comments on the article version of this episode on getwellbe.com, and you'll find a link to that in the show notes. I'd really love to hear your experience, so please do share it with me. Also, while you're there, become a Wellbe Insider so that you can get all of our latest content, special offers, and personal notes I don't share anywhere else weekly in your inbox. Plus, you'll get a free copy of my audio guide on how to feel the best you've ever felt and heal anything. The 10 things you need to optimize your health and heal any health issue, big or small, naturally. Even if you're the healthiest person out there, I promise you'll learn something from it you didn't know that can optimize your health. I'll see you back here next week for another episode of the Wellbe Podcast. If you haven't already and found this episode helpful or interesting, subscribe to the podcast. This way you'll never miss a new episode and they'll be delivered to you whenever I publish a new one. And please share this episode with family or friends who you think might find it valuable and informative. It means a lot and helps more people find the podcast. If you already have, then thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Once again, this is your host, Adrienne Nolan-Smith, and thanks for listening to the Wellbe Podcast.